Hey friends and book lovers, welcome back. Today I am doing another round of my weekly reads. I did one a few weeks back and I'm going to try to do one on the weeks where I don't vlog or on the weeks where I feel like I could use more of an update because I've been reading a lot. So I figured this was one of those weeks and I wanted to update y'all. So I'm going to start with the books that I have finished in the past couple of weeks. There's only been 2, but they are big ones. So I finished the Starless Sea and Six of Crows. And I'll start by talking about the Starless Sea. I have this beautiful special edition, but I went ahead and did like the little sticky tabs because it's the only edition that I had. So I wanted to annotate parts that I really like. There's going to be a live show that's hosted by Books with Fee this month, and Kate at the Literary Apothecary is going to be on there too discussing this book. It is a long read. I was hoping to finish this in March, but it really took me a couple weeks or so to finish and read it. It takes a while. It's also 500-ish pages, and the fact that it's very dense, it's very thick, it is very difficult to get through at times. Not because it's boring. It's not boring at all. It's just a lot to think about. There are a lot of things that are happening, a lot of little pieces of information that you're fed that all tie in at the end, but that's like the last 50 pages. So in the first 450 pages, you're getting all of these stories and fables that are interspersed within the main storyline, which is going on, and everything, including the main storyline, are giving you these little tidbits, and sometimes you don't remember all the fables. It's kind of like reading a dream. I feel like it's just this dreamy Alice in Wonderland, but make it books, dreamy feeling. And I wanted to review this, but I feel like it's a tough one to review because it's so different than so many other stories that I've ever read, and parts of it won't make sense until the end, and you really have to make sure that you're reading it regularly because it's easy to put down and like softy enough when there's more exciting books that you're in the middle of, but this one was definitely worth the read. So I'm glad I read it, but it was definitely a lot to think about. I feel like it's one of those books that I'm gonna have to reread, and upon rereading, I'm gonna pick up so much more. Like I said, it is a dense one, but it is beautiful and it's definitely worth the read if you like those kinds of dreamy, whimsical, bits and pieces, fabled story books. Some of the fables I absolutely loved. The Moon and the Sun was my favorite one I think that I read. I loved that fable, and it does stay in the story a bunch, so it was one of my favorites, but you do discover favorite fables in this, and that was probably one of the funnest parts for me. I know this was a big buddy read, so if you guys have read this, let me know your thoughts down below. I would really love to know what y'all thought of this book and how your opinion might differ from mine. And the next book is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Of course, my goal was to read the first Grisha trilogy and then Six of Crows before the Netflix show comes out, and I'm hoping to get to Crooked Kingdom at the end of April as well, or at least maybe before the show comes out so I can finish Crooked Kingdom as well. This one leaves us off on a bit of a cliffhanger, but not one that I'm too worried about. So if you've read it, I feel like you'll understand what I'm trying to say. I'm not super worried about it, but I'm still really intrigued on how the story is going to play out. I think out of all the characters, Kaz is my favorite. I just love those like morally gray, kind of, you're not really sure what they're thinking, mastermind type of characters. And Kaz is definitely one of those in here, and he's probably my favorite. I think out of all of the Grisha books, he's my favorite character. Out of the trilogy, out of Six of Crows, out of the 4 that I read, yeah, definitely I love him the most. I can see what all the hype around Kaz and around Six of Crows has been. I will say I have seen a lot of different booktubers and bookstagrammers be super emotionally destroyed by Six of Crows, and I didn't feel emotionally destroyed, though there were parts where I was definitely holding my breath, that I was definitely worried for the crew, and I was scared, and there were some parts at the end that, you know, weren't really nice, but I wasn't heartbroken. If anything, I'm worried that I'll be heartbroken for Crooked Kingdom more than I was for this one, but this one was a really fun ride. I like how it opens up, I like how we meet Kaz, I like how we see how his mind works, like the first few chapters. It's spectacular and he really makes a splash. So I loved this. I will say a couple things. Leigh Bardugo's writing, of course, as everyone already knows, it does get better in this trilogy, and there are a lot of almost improvements in this book versus the first trilogy, and I almost want to compare them because though they're difficult to compare, I definitely want to talk about them in a separate video. So I think they'll be really interesting to do. This book does have Grisha magic still, but it's less based on that. It's more based on like the cleverness of the mind plus the powers, but they're not as prevalent as in the first trilogy. So that was really cool to see. I also want to say that I think she put her characters at a much younger age than they should have been. These characters are like 17, 18, 16, but they act like they're in their mid 20s or like maybe even early 20s in some of them. They don't act as young as they are in this book. There's just no way that I believe that their age is 17. Like Kaz is 17 and he's like this amazing mastermind, which I could believe at like 25 or 26, but not at 17. So let me know if you guys had similar opinions. I know I talked to some other folks that have read this that had some similar opinions. It was a really fun ride and I am scared and anticipating and excited for Crooked Kingdom, which I'm hoping to get to maybe in the next couple of weeks. And then I want to talk about some current reads. I'm going to talk about Homeland. This is the Dungeons & Dragons book by R.A. Salvatore. I've read a few more chapters in this, but I still have a bunch to finish, so I'm gonna try to make this my weekend plan for this upcoming weekend to read this and get like a bigger chunk through the book so that I can finish it this month. But so far I'm enjoying it. It's definitely dark fantasy. Our characters are not even morally gray, they're just mostly evil, but that's really interesting to me. I don't read a lot of fantasy books where the main characters are all mostly evil and all driven by like things we would consider as like sinful or bad in this world. So I'm intrigued. Again, it's my boyfriend's favorite book series, so I've committed to reading at least the first 3, and this is the first in the first trilogy in the longer series for D&D Legends of Driss. So I'm excited. I don't know if anyone else has read this or is interested in this, but let me know if you have in the comments down below. I feel like it's popular amongst D&D fans, but I haven't really seen it make any rounds on BookTube yet. And the next one that I'm currently reading is a fave of a close friend of mine here on BookTube, and I know how much she loves it. And I'm also really intrigued because both Joanna and Johanna on BookTube really love this main character in this book, and that is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. And of course, the main character that I'm talking about is Vin. Now, Vin seems to have a lot of cheerleaders that are rooting for her, that really love her, that really enjoy her as a character, and I'm hoping that eventually I'll be one of those too. Right now I'm about 60 something pages into this book and I love Kelsier probably the most out of any of the characters, and I'm hoping that doesn't change, but of course in fantasy there's always a lot of twists, turns, and like wrenches thrown into your character loving plans sometimes. So we'll see how I feel about Kelsier once I read more into this. So I'm hoping to add this to my weekend plans as well and maybe get either the entire book finished or a good chunk done, because this is a book that I'm going to be using for my prompts for the Chartathon readathon that's going on this month. This is a series that I want to read. I've never read the Mistborn Era 1 series, and I'm starting off with this. So far, so good. I feel like it did take me about 60 pages to really get into the story with Vin, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot, and I'm excited to see where the story goes, and I'm thinking I'm gonna really love the mentor-mentee trope that I see brewing in this book. So if you guys love this book, let me know. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it. And then the next books I'm going to be discussing are the ones that are up next on the docket. Now I'm currently reading the 2 that I mentioned before, but these next 3 are ones that I'm either almost starting or going to be starting in the next little while, hopefully after I finish one of the 2 that I'm currently reading. One of those is Awakens by Elise Kova. This is a buddy read on the Shelf Space In channel. It's its own separate thing, and the first book that we're reading is Awakens. I believe it's a quartet, and I believe that it is in the fantasy romance genre. And Elise Kova is also one of those authors that I really want to read more of, so of course I jumped in on that buddy read, and I'm really excited. I haven't even read a page or 2 yet, but it is going to be on the docket for this weekend too if I can at least start the book. I feel like I will love it, and it's a short read too, so I don't think it's going to take me very much to finish. And the fact that it's YA, I know that it won't take me as long to finish because YA books usually I can blow through really quickly. So I'm excited for that one. I don't know much about the premise. I know that it's elemental magic. I think our main character is a female sorceress with elemental magic, so I'm excited to learn more about her. I know that she's, I think, kind of an introvert, maybe a librarian. A library is somehow heavily involved. So of course, I love stuff like that, and I'm really looking forward to it. I know that some folks have already started it, and I can't wait to jump in on the discussion with them. The next book I plan on starting is actually an unofficial buddy read for the Shelf Space Discord, and that is The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. This might be getting more popular on BookTube since Elliot Brooks mentioned it, and that's how I found out about it as well, is through her channel and through Patrick Leo. So this is an adult fantasy novel, and it is the first in a trilogy by Jen Williams. From what I understand in the synopsis, this is a group of adventurers, and I think magic is involved somehow with them, and they face on monsters and acquire artifacts in the process. And something also happens to get them more imbued in magic and conspiracy, and I think a little bit of politics in this book, so I'm intrigued to find out more. The synopsis really doesn't give away too much, so I don't know a lot about it, which is great for me, but it's definitely intriguing how we're gonna have some adventure, we're gonna have some monsters, we're gonna have some artifacts. I'm hoping magical artifacts are involved, and we're definitely gonna have some magic, and I'm curious to know what the 9th reign actually means. So we're gonna get into this with a buddy read, and I'm hoping that it's a really good read and hoping that everyone enjoys it. If you guys want to join us, definitely get on the Shelf Space Discord and join us over there. It is going to be a really fun time, so I can't wait to start this. Let me know if you've read it. I'm definitely excited to hear if other folks have read this too, besides Elliot Brooks and Patrick Leo. The next and last book that I am trying to read in the next few days is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is also one that I don't know a ton about. I know that it's set in the Middle East. I know that there's a lot of good food in it, and I know that it's supposed to be a really, really amazing read. I am purposely trying not to know too much about this because I feel like I'm gonna go into it blind and it's gonna be much more enjoyable. So I have barely read the synopsis. I think I read it once and that was months ago, and I never read it again, and here we are. So this is also going to be one that I use for the Chartathon Readathon prompts, and one that I'm really looking forward to. It is also a beginning of a trilogy. I've heard a lot of good things, and I heard that it kind of gets addicting, so I'm excited. Plus, if we all like it, then Books with V's channel on her Discord, we're going to do a buddy read for the 2nd and 3rd books in the following months, which just gives me that much more motivation to pick it up, especially when there's other folks reading it and other folks that I can discuss it with. I'm excited to get into this. I'm excited to see a different world, a different setting than some of the other worlds that I'm diving into, so I'm looking forward to that. I know that it is pretty food focused, or not food focused, but I know that there is talk of some really delicious food in this, so I'm gonna have to have some delicious snacks on hand while I read it. All right, friends, so those are the books that I have finished, the books that I'm currently reading, and the books that I'm planning to start in the next couple of days. If you're planning on reading any of these anytime soon, let me know. You can always talk to me about any of the books that you're reading. I always love to talk about books non-stop. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button. That does help me out a lot. And if you enjoyed my content, please feel free to subscribe for more of my videos.